A word from our sponsors. AdQuick seamlessly connects advertisers to out-of-home media owners anywhere in the US and abroad, and makes it easier than ever to plan, buy, and measure every kind of outdoor advertising, from static billboards to hand-painted murals. If you run online ads, you're used to the speed of deployment and accountability provided via analytics. AdQuick provides the same experience digital marketers are used to in the OOH space. With AdQuick, advertisers gain immediate access to over 1,600 premium out-of-home media owners, can execute OOH buys 10 times faster, launch OOH campaigns in as little as 48 hours, and unlock unprecedented measurability. To learn more, go to adquick.com. Again, that's adquick.com. This is a disclosure. Please note that all guests featured on the AdTechGod pod are invited to participate. They do not pay in any form to appear on the show. However, guests may be sponsors of the AdTechGod community, the AdTech Forum, or other product offerings. Welcome to the AdTechGod pod, your window into the world of advertising technology and the people behind it. I'm your host, AdTechGod. Welcome back to another episode of the AdTechGod pod, the podcast where we meet the sales leaders of our industry. My guest today is Tal Almany, the VP of Global Supply at Kargo. Tal's impressive career has taken him through key roles at Adconion, OpenX, SpotX, and more. He has refined his skills and built long-standing relationships with key publishing partners in the US and abroad. But there's more to Tal than just professional achievements. In an interesting twist, he was also an extra on the hit show Criminal Minds and had a former career as a chef. So it's two fun facts I just found out about today. Tal is known for an exceptional ability to build relationships and his phenomenal sales acumen, making him a standout figure in his field. I'm excited to dive into his experience and learn from his unique perspective. Tal, welcome to the AdTechGod pod.
Wow. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. And you are actually the second company to have two guests. So I had Index Exchange, Corey Greenberg, and Matt Barash. And now I have you, second person from Kargo. So I'm excited to have you here, and thank you to Kargo for having you guys here.
Of course. It's a true honor. Thank you for asking me.
So Tal, I start every podcast the same way. I like to get a good understanding of your background and what brought you to the point that you're in today in your career. I think it's important to hear people's journey. How did you get to Kargo and how did you start in this industry?
Sure. So it goes way back, unfortunately and fortunately. I started my career at an agency. So a friend of mine gave me a chance, basically said he knew that I was not happy doing what I was doing, which was cooking. Sort of burnt myself out really quickly in that industry, which happens and no one prepared me for. And he said, look, I work at an agency that we're always looking for good people. If you want to check it out for a couple months, see how you like it. And if you don't like it after that, you can move on. If you like it, we'll find something that's more permanent for you here. So I started in the finance department, and it was a big change for me. So working in the kitchens was like working all afternoons, all evenings, all weekends and holidays. And then I went to a 9-to-5 job at a desk, which was very strange. I did it for a few months, and then they opened up a digital department at this agency. Now, this was late 2006, early 2007. Nobody wanted to touch it. So they said, hey, give it to the new guy. So I took it and I sat down at my new computer, and they put me in front of an ad server and they said, here you go, traffic a campaign. And that's when I froze and I'm like, well, what's a campaign and what's trafficking? They sent me to training. They did all the right things, and I learned what CPMs are and CTR is, and creatives and all that stuff. And it was a really good experience. From there, I went and worked at a publisher. I found a job that said ad ops and trafficking. So I'm like, sweet, I could do that. And then I get there, and day one, I'm like, oh, this is not the same kind of trafficking. So I had to learn something new. Great experience, learned a lot about the web, learned a lot about ad operations and ad sales and account management. It was a fun job. From there, I got a chance to work at what I learned became an ad network. And I didn't know what an ad network was at the time. It was relatively new, but they took a chance on me and they said, look, we know you have the ability to create good relationships. We could teach you all the rest of the stuff. You want to come in here and be a media buyer? I said, great, I'll do that. Sounds like a lot of fun. And this was, now we're talking 2010. So early ad network days, I think. I learned from really great people. Keith Kaplan. I'm going to be very name droppy here. So
That's fine. No, I want to hear names because I think it's super important too, because, these are the people that kind of, set you up to where you're at today.
Totally. No shame. I don't think there's any shame in name dropping for when you're, complimenting the people who made you and molded you to your career. So it was a mix of Keith Kaplan, Dan Alexander, Christian Wilson, all like just awesome people, and really took a chance on me and helped me gain the knowledge and really took me under their wing to learn the business. I got out there, I became a leader, I grew, I got promoted, and it was a really pivotal moment for me to like really sink my teeth into this industry. Company went through some changes, and then there was layoffs, whatever, no big deal. These things do happen. And then I got asked to come to OpenX. Jason White reached out to me. I'm sure most of people listening here know. And he said, we want you to come and do this BD thing that we call, our publisher team. And I was nervous. It was the same sort of like job I was doing, but it was a little more serious. And it was the most focused on part of the business at OpenX. And I hit the ground running, which was so cool. And like people that I worked around were like, holy shit, this guy comes in and week one, he's already closing publisher deals. And it was natural to me, which was a lot of fun. I mean, 5 years went by like a flash. I really learned a lot about programmatic, really learned a lot about header bidding and video and making complex deals and really honing in on the relationship part of my career. And that's what I really sunk my teeth into. I may not be the smartest person in the room. I might not be the most technically knowledgeable person either, but I do know that I can out-relationship just about anyone. And I took that and rode that into the sunset. At some point, what we had built at OpenX was starting to not feel right to me anymore. We had a great run. I really do think we had a great run between Tim Cadogan and Jason Fairchild and John Gentry, who all were great leaders at their time during my tenure there. Really taught me a lot, but I think like my time came to an end there, and I knew it. I looked around, I found some cool stuff, and then out of nowhere, Sean Buckley from SpotX calls me, and I've known Sean for years at the time, probably almost 10 years. And he says, "Hey, we're getting into header bidding." He's like, "How much do you understand about header bidding?" I'm like, "Well, pretty good amount." I still stand by that OpenX built and invented header bidding. We were the pioneers at the time. He knew that, and he respected that, and he knew that I had the chops and the relationships to take that and parlay that into video. So he offered me a role, and it was very different than any other role I've taken. It was a hybrid of product owner and business development, and sort of like he called it a mini CEO of a business. And I got in there, and I feel like I really did a good job. 2.5 years, made some great relationships, learned a lot about internal communication. And it really taught me a lot on how to talk to people internally, how to talk to people more detailed externally, and kind of bring everything together to ensure that all the pieces are there to build and release a great product.
Do you feel like when you moved from being a chef, which is awesome, by the way, to ad ops, like a more, I guess, like ad trafficking role, and then moved into biz dev, did you feel that the second you got into biz dev, like you knew that, okay, this is what I was meant to do?
It felt right. At first, when I was at the agency, I remember that one of the account directors was like, "You know what, you really should get into sales." And I was terrified. I was like, that sounds cool, but like, I'm scared to get called out that I don't know what I'm talking about. And it was very immature thinking of me at the time, but I just didn't have the confidence. But as I grew and as I got older and matured and got more experience in my belt, I got more comfortable with it. And I had always been comfortable talking to people. I waited tables for, what feels like 10 years. And that was like really my first sales job. You go up to a bunch of strangers, supposedly they're having a good time, they want to be there, and you have to do your pitch, and you have to sell them on something. You have to sell them on a meal, on a on a dream, on cocktails, and whatever. Your job is to show them a good time. It really clicked there before I even got into this wonderful world of ad tech. I parlayed that experience and that knowledge and skill into my success today.
Do you feel like moving into Kargo, and I ran through this on the last episode, but do you feel like moving into Kargo in a market that has, a lot of solutions in market, do you feel like there are challenges in your role today? Do you heavily get involved in like taking the product to market and working with these publishers? What does like your day look like working with publishers of all different sizes in market?
Sure. Before I even started at Kargo, I sat down with Harry, our CEO, and I told him sort of how I like to run my business. I'm very hands-on. I'm very publisher-facing. I want to be involved in a lot of things, but I also like to bring things back to the ranch and take that feedback and bring it to product engineering, to exec, and ensure that we build the right products for our publishers. So I'm really big on that continuous feedback loop to ensure that we're not just wasting time and resources building things that publishers don't want. I am very focused on keeping the publishers happy and ensuring that their needs are met with either what we build, what we offer, our demand focus, et cetera, et cetera. I'm very, very publisher focused. That said, when I started, Kargo looked a little different. We were still doing the same thing that we're doing today. I think that we needed a little kind of kick in the ass to get things to where they are today. I had great interview process, with Mike Shaughnessy, with Harry Kargman. It was a really smooth process, which was so nice because I've been through so many interviews that just take weeks and weeks and weeks, and sometimes months. And they're like, well, how about another conversation? It's like, guys, when are you going to make up your mind? You should know by now if you want me or not. But Kargo was really quick and really efficient. I came in, had a great team, but what the team built here was already awesome. We just needed to give it a little fine tuning on the pub side, and we were off to the races. Taking a step back, when I was at OpenX, when I was at SpotX, it was both really big inflection points of companies needed to make a change to the tune of going towards quality as opposed to quantity. I remember doing the exercise at OpenX where we lopped off 30%, the bottom 30% of our network. It hurt. It hurt big time. Anytime you do that, the revenue tanks. But we learned that it hurts in the short term, but it's good for the long term. And I've kind of stuck by that for my career since then. We did it at SpotX, and then I brought that sort of notion and mentality to Kargo, and we did the same thing. We're getting a lot of press around it. We're getting a lot of accolades. People are noticing. Chris from Jounce has mentioned us a bunch of times. Analytics mentioned us. We're doing all the right things. And it's not easy. Actually, really difficult because we do miss out on certain things because there are instances where advertisers do want that cheap reach, or they do want cheap vanity metrics, or they just don't care. And we're trying to get the industry to care. And being a do-gooder is difficult. Even when we were growing up and, you were a do-gooder, people looked at you funny. Like, oh, you're an ass kisser or a brown noser or a nerd or whatever they called us back then. Probably much worse things, but we can save that for another time.
What do you think with the industry kind of, some consolidation happening? There's new solutions in marketing, connected TV, and I know you guys expanded into connected TV over the last few years. What direction do you think the industry is heading in, and what do you think is going to be positive and impacting our industry in a good way over the next 12 or 18 months?
It's every time I get asked a question to look into the future, I find it so hard anything you say or anything you think is going to happen almost certainly doesn't. It's always like, oh, okay, well, the next big thing is AI, or the next big thing is mobile, or the next big thing is CTV. SPO is going to crush everything, or there's so much consolidation going to be happening, or that needs to happen. All those things are right. But like they happen in spurts, and then the new thing comes along, it becomes a spurt, and then a new thing comes along, and it's like, oh shit, look, squirrel. And we're so crazy and frenetic about keeping up with things or getting ahead of things that I feel like sometimes the industry loses sight about what we're really doing. I don't even know if this is related to your original question, but like I always like to say that this is just advertising. Sometimes we take ourselves a little too seriously. And sometimes we need to. Yes, we know we're doing things that affect people and affect big brands and companies and whatnot. But once you strip all that shit out, like we're just doing advertising here, right?
Yeah, and we do get distracted by shiny objects. And I had this conversation with Paul, connecting the former CMO at Beeswax, and he said like everybody is always looking for the next shiny object, but in the end, like what's the story and what are you delivering on? And he's a CMO, and he said, in the end, it's the core product that you're offering and the relationships that you have and the people that you interact with. Focus on what you have today and look towards the future, but don't, just shift your strategy every time something new comes on the horizon.
Absolutely. You got to keep the future in your sights, but you can't lose focus on what is actually paying your bills today. And I feel like if we do less better, I think we'd all succeed a lot more as an industry.
I agree. So you've obviously worked in publisher side, ad tech companies, solutions to publishers.
Sheesh.
You work in business development side. You've been doing this for a really long time.
Really long time. Thank you for not using a number.
I know it feels like a really long time. It feels like a really long time. There are days where I'm like, I can't believe I've been doing this for this long. This is like insane.
I have to sometimes take a step back and look at my oldest son, and I'm like, oh, 6 months more than your life is how long I've been in this industry. It's terrifying.
It is terrifying. It's when they look at you and they say, did you guys have a phone in the olden days? And I'm like, well, yeah, we had a phone, but we didn't have internet.
Yes,
when I was growing up.
The phone was connected to the wall.
I remember that it was like a 6-foot cord.
Yeah,
and you just go 10. Hide somewhere in a corner or dial up in the middle of your living room, and you dial in with your cool AIM screen name. It's moved so fast, and whether you've been doing this for 5 years or you've been doing it for 15 or 20 years, it's really evolved a lot. And the stories that I get from you and the stories I get from other people on the podcast are always pretty cool, because you hear people's transition from, chef to an extra on Criminal Minds to ad ops. Like it's pretty cool to just hear people's life stories.
That extra job haunts me everywhere I go.
What was that all about?
Always my fun fact. So a friend of mine, he directed a few episodes of Criminal Minds. It was earlier on in his career, and he's obviously moved on to do amazing, amazing things. One day he asked me, he's like, hey, do you want to be an extra? He's like, we're filming like 20 minutes away from your office. It's like, if you can get here by 3:00, I'll put you in a show. Oh my God, that sounds amazing. So I did that. I did it twice. So the first time I was there from like 3 to midnight, we shot a scene, and I was in the background. I was a police officer, and it was so cool just to experience that, like to see how Hollywood works. And then weeks later, he was cutting and filming. He's like editing, and he's like, "Hey, I'm so sorry, but I had to cut you out." It's like, oh God, that's soul crushing. And then a year later, he called me again. He's like, "Oh, I've got another opportunity for you to be a policeman again." He's like, "I promise you, I'll get you screen time this time." I'm like, okay, cool. Very similar situation, but he called me specifically out, like on the megaphone, and that was kind of like, I don't want to say embarrassing, but it was, I felt guilty because there's so many extras there who are like really trying their hardest to like get into the industry. And I'm here just kind of like dicking around, doing a favor for a friend. And they call me to be specifically like put into a scene and get camera time, like instant hate. They hated me right away. He had to stop and like pull me aside. He's like, "Hey, here's what you're doing." He's like, don't do this. Don't focus on that. And like, don't stare straight into the camera. So it took like 2 or 3 takes, but I got it. And It's
Do
memorialized.
you know what episode, what series, or what episode it was?
It's
because I want to find it.
It's on Netflix. I think it's season 12, episode 2. I think
I'm going to find this, right?
Oh, absolutely. And it's like the 38 minutes mark of the show. It's towards the end. I've got like 3 seconds.
I was going to ask you the highlight of your career. It sounds like this was it.
It's kind of funny that the highlights of my career come outside of AdTech.
Do I remember? Yeah, I remember. I definitely remember. I think it was at the 37 mark of, series, season 12.
I've had to memorize it because everyone asks.
That's awesome.
Everyone is so curious. And I'm like, guys, it was nothing. It was nothing, but it's exciting for people. And I'm glad to offer that to them.
What do you think? We'll kind of shift topics a little bit. Like, what do you think in terms of ad tech? Like, what do you think is the main topic that people, mostly disagree on, that you feel like the disagreement shouldn't be there?
I feel like there's a lot of talk, and I hate getting into this conversation. I just want to high level it completely. The cookie going away. I mean, we've been hearing it for years. We've been scared of it. We've been not scared of it. We're ready for it. We're not ready for it. I've been saying for, I feel like 2 years now, that it's never happening. And then I remember someone who shall remain nameless, who said, I am absolutely crazy for thinking that. This was at the end of 2023. He's like, you have to be stupid to think that it's not going to happen. I'm like, okay. Again, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I have my opinion. And I feel like I've seen this game before, or I've seen this movie before, and I know the ending. And I was like, told you so. But I'm sure it'll happen at some point. I just think we're just, as an industry, not ready for it. We're not ready to relinquish that power yet.
No, I think there's a reason why they pushed it back again. I think
there's so many reasons. There's so many reasons, I'm sure.
Recognize that everybody wasn't there, and it would be such a negative impact on the industry. I mean, there's so many good solutions out in market, and I won't say which solutions are better than others, but
I'm sure some of it was self-fulfilling too. You have to admit.
Right. I mean, of course. I mean, that's
we as a company weren't ready for it, so maybe we'll push it, delay it a little longer,
hunt it a little, hunt it down the road a little.
I find that we disagree a lot on collaboration. Actually, I don't even think we disagree on it. I think that we a lot of us say we want to collaborate and do better for this industry, but in reality, we don't. And that's something that I personally would like to change. Like, I think if we could all work on certain things together as an industry and take the ego and take the whatever else out of it that makes us kind of, ugly sometimes, I think we can succeed.
Well, I think a lot of it's the winner take all mentality. So like, depending on the company you work at, the culture is very different. Some are like collaborate, partner, and expand, let them fill the void of your solution somehow. You don't have to build everything. You can just focus on what you build. But then others are like, no, we need to eat the whole market.
Yeah.
And how do we do that?
And I get that from a business standpoint, but we're not going to get as far as we need to if we think like that constantly. Like, this universal ID thing could probably be solved if we're willing to take our egos out of it.
Totally.
And quickly.
You've been working in the advertising industry for a long time, but what do you think on a personal level or professional level is one of the nicest things somebody's done for you outside of, being put on, season 12, episode 2, the 37-minute mark? For everybody listening, go check it out. I'll find it. I'll try to post it too.
Netflix is going to burst, and it's going to get so much traffic. It's going to be a spike on one episode of Criminal Minds.
More than the Olympics. It's like more than the Super Bowl.
Is your user base that big? Kidding. Nicest thing. Gosh. I'd have to go back to the beginning. How I got into this. So the gentleman who offered me this job did it because I was having my first kid. He's like, I know what your wife's insurance looks like. I know what they cover, what they don't cover. He's like, if you come and work here for 6 months, we'll give you full insurance. And it's like the best coverage you can imagine. Like 100% coverage, nothing out of pocket. Amazing, amazing benefits. And once you have the kid, he's like, stick around for a couple months. And then if you want to leave, leave.
And 15 years later?
18.
I get it.
It didn't seem so monumental at the time, but like having no money and like staring down like the barrel of a, $4,000, $5,000, $6,000 insurance bill from a hospital was terrifying.
Right.
And it really was the nicest thing to happen to me because it got me out of the kitchen. It made me shift gears. It made me think differently. And it accidentally opened me up into this industry that I fucking love. I truly love ad tech. I have tons of fun. I learn so much every day. It's never the same. Every 4-6 months, something is changing and you learn something new, and it's so dynamic. Not many industries can say that.
Right.
And we get to do really cool shit too, which
we
I
do.
love.
It's fun. It's also a fun industry. Like we have so many smart people that work in it, from engineering side to product. We have a lot of relationship driven people from, account management to sales leadership. And we all kind of learn together and grow together. And that's why I think when you mentioned the thing about, I wish we would just work together more closely to solve some of the problems that we have, like a, universal ID or something else. It's true. It's just, some companies, they don't want that.
Yeah.
They want to win, but they don't realize that winning as an industry is actually winning for them too.
Totally. And sometimes I read articles that say ad tech is doomed or ad tech's going away. And
I don't believe that.
I don't believe that for a second, but like, if we keep doing dumb shit like this or selfish things like that, and it's like, it could happen. Right. Not like completely gone, but like it could look very different in 2 years and 3 years.
Look, we have to adjust. And the adjustment is, complying with regulation, whether that's in the form of, privacy regulation, whether that has to do with better user experiences for our clients or our customers or our browsers on our websites or apps. Like we have to adjust. If we keep doing what we're doing, we're going to lose advertising dollars. We're going to lose users on the website. Like I think people got a little bit too greedy, and it's time to kind of pull it back and say, let's deliver high quality content in a user friendly way and respect their privacy. It's the only way.
We have to hold each other and this industry accountable.
I agree. Well, Tal, this actually brings us to the end.
The end? Oh.
The end of the podcast. That's it. I told you it'd go by quick.
Damn.
Awesome.
I can do this forever.
Thank you for being here, Tal.
Oh, thank you for having me. It was a true pleasure. Great talking to you. And look forward to some awesome things to come. And congratulations.
Thank you.
Really,
Tal.
really happy for you. True testament to the hard work you've put in. And, the bringing this industry together is, you've done a great job. So congrats.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the AdTechGod Pod, a podcast for the people, about the people that make ad tech great. Stay connected with me for more insights, trends, and interviews in the realm of ad tech. Don't miss out on our latest updates, so follow me on X, Instagram, and connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't forget, ATG Slack community has insights, networking opportunities, and jobs. Keep the conversation going and stay at the forefront of ad tech innovation.